What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. Here's a quick synopsis. In the 13 years after the 100-year war, Avatar Aang has brought the members of the Free Elements together, but is still in mourning over the loss of airbenders when he uncovers an airbender named Taga in an iceberg who claims to have a way to bring airbenders back into the world. I want to talk about this film in a different way than I usually do on this podcast, so to pay homage to this movie and the show Avatar The Last Airbender, I'm going to talk about the 4 elements that make this a movie worth seeing. The first element is one that I was wary of going into this film, the aging up of the characters. I know they've somewhat done that in Korra, but this is different. This movie is asking you to spend a lot of time with these characters, Aang, Sokka, Katara, Toph, and Zuko. All of them are played by different voice actors, and I don't know what the consensus is, but it worked for me for this movie. And one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to talk about this aspect of the movie is because this is something you never see in animation. Shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy keep their characters the same ages, and because it's animation, we all accept it. Brad Bird recently said that he's not aging the family for a third Incredibles movie. It's a risk to age up cartoon characters, and not everyone will be pleased. For this movie, it's a success though, right? And my thing is, if you loved so much how the characters used to be, you should just keep rewatching Avatar The Last Airbender. This is a new story. The characters are aged up. They should feel somewhat different to the original characters from that show. I mean, they are the same people, but they are grown up now. That is what happens in real life. I get it. We don't usually see that from animated characters, but I appreciated that from this movie that they went there. And I can only speak for myself, but I would have found it really jarring if they made a movie with Aang where he was still a child. Like, that would not have been character development, that would not have been growth. Then it would have just felt like another episode of Avatar The Last Airbender. The reason that this movie feels so different is because the characters are different than the ones I watched when I was a kid. And that makes sense to me because I'm no longer a child. The characters have grown and developed with me. It makes me still care about these characters. Sometimes when I'm watching a cartoon and the characters stay the same, I go, why should I care about this at all? Yes, I still want to see glimpses of the characters I grew up watching. I want to see Sokka be really funny. I want to see the caring Katara from the television show, but I also want to see how the characters have grown, what has happened in the years since. And most of us know from watching the show how Aang carried himself when he was the Avatar, when he was a young child, how he handled that situation. It's more interesting to look at how he would handle it now that he's an adult. I think you'll agree with me once you see the movie. He is the character that is most different than what he was on the television show. I mean, on the TV show, Aang is literally a kid who has a crush on Katara and is navigating being the Avatar. In this, he is kind of self-serious, and I'm here for it. It's a much different version of the character. The second element of this movie I need to talk about is scope. It's hard to turn a TV show into a movie. How do you turn a beloved animated series into something that feels cinematic? And how this movie accomplishes that is, for one, the movie looks incredible. Second, and most importantly, the battle scenes are unbelievable and feel bigger than they felt on TV. And that's what you have to do if you turn your show into a movie. Obviously, I liked the action scenes in the original series, but they elevated it when it came to this movie, and they had to make it feel bigger than it was when it was on TV. They raised the bar, and I have to specifically shout out what they did with Toph's earthbending in this movie. It's just simply put incredible. We live in a time where it is really hard to differentiate what is the difference between television and movies. I mean, it used to be you saw movies on the big screen and you saw TV shows on your television at home, and now you see movies on TV as well. I mean, this movie is streaming on Paramount Plus, so it is quite possible to watch the entire series of Avatar: The Last Airbender and then for you to watch Avatar: Aang: The Last Airbender all within a few days of one another. And I'm not going to go into quality because I'm not going to say that this is better than the original series. I'm just here to say that Avatar: Aang: The Last Airbender does feel epic and it does feel grand in scale. One of my biggest fears going into this, that this would just feel like a 90-minute episode of the television show, because that's what the TV show used to do. There were some 2-part episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender. And not to sound like a snob, but I really wanted this to feel like a movie, and thankfully it did. Sometimes you can really feel the effort that something is trying to feel different than the television show. I mean, sometimes you watch these movies based on a TV show and you go, wow, you are trying so hard to feel different than the original material. And I did not feel that way with Avatar: Aang: The Last Airbender. I believe they were willing to raise the stakes in a way that made sense for these characters. The third element this movie has going for it is a story worth telling. If you are going to bring back these iconic characters, it has to be for a good enough reason, a compelling one, and one that feels big enough for a movie. And one thing I really liked was making it all about Aang's guilt, about being the last airbender, and he's really having this conflict about if what he's doing is best for himself or if it's best for everyone else. I just think they gave Aang an incredible arc here, and it makes up for the fact that some of the other characters feel underserved by this movie. So just to get into it a little bit, you have Aang, who gets confronted by Taga, voiced by Dave Bautista, who, like himself, desperately wants to bring back airbending. The original series was really all about the pressure of him being the Avatar and him being the one who has to eventually take down the Fire Lord. This movie doesn't have one of those missions. This is a personal quest for Aang. I mean, he is desperate to undo something that is the biggest guilt of his life. He thinks he is the sole reason there is no longer airbenders. And I liked how even though Aang is fully grown up, the movie still sometimes is willing to make him feel like a complicated character. Like he does stuff in this movie that puts him and his friends in danger. Again, I just think Aang is the character that feels the most different from the animated series. I mean, Katara still feels like the Katara from the show. Sokka is still making a lot of jokes. Toph is similar to what she was at the end of the series. And Zuko is just kind of peacefully the Fire Lord. Aang is the character in this movie who is given a real conflict. This is also something I wanted to get into. I think the stakes of the television show were so high. I mean, it was Aang has to save the world. The stakes in this movie feel super high when you're watching it because of the scope I was talking about. But in reality, it's really just all about Aang's desire to bring back airbending. It was beyond a wise choice to hone into a story like this that is self-contained, because you have an hour and a half to tell the story. Your movie can't feel so big that you start to lose track of it. That never happens in this movie. You know what it's about, you know what Aang is dealing with, and you also have that history of Aang being the last airbender for almost the last 20 years. We're all aware of how the character feels this guilt. and has felt that way since he was a child, and now he's an adult and he thinks he has a chance to reverse what he did as a kid. There's some real power in this story. And this is really the only kind of story you can tell about Aang at this point in time, because we've already seen him master the four elements. He's learned water bending, he's learned earth bending, he's learned firebending. The only kind of story you can tell now is an emotional one about Aang as the Avatar. Yes, I enjoyed the few scenes in this movie about him learning some new tricks when it comes to airbending, but really the power of this story is about the emotional arc he goes on. And if I may, I want to go into my own personal history with the television show for a minute, because my favorite part of that show is the emotional arc that Prince Zuko goes on. I mean, he starts that show as a banished prince who has to go after the Avatar, a being that his father doesn't think is ever going to come back. And then by the end of the show, he finds redemption. I love these characters, I love the bending, I love the fighting, I love the action, but really what gets me when it comes to the television show and the movie is the emotions of this story. The fourth and final element is the fact that this film, Avatar Aang The Last Airbender, has just the right amount of nostalgia towards the animated series. The callbacks to past jokes, we all know that sometimes these things can lean way too hard towards nostalgia and not really offer anything new, and I'm beyond glad that's not the case with this. It's a worthy continuation of a story that lots of people love. That is how I feel anyway. I know some of you will disagree. Some people will want more callbacks from the television show, or they'll wish that the movie focused more on the other characters like Toph or Zuko. What I'm getting at is I think this movie had something to offer other than a nostalgia play. Like, this didn't feel like a money grab. It felt like the creators had a story to tell here, that they had a plan of where they wanted to take these characters. That is something that I found so special about that original series, is they had the whole thing mapped out of where they were going. And I felt that exact same execution when it came to this movie. And I find that extremely rare in sequels or continuations of anything. Usually they feel like cash grabs. They feel like something that's trying to take advantage of the popularity of something. I mean, we all know that Avatar The Last Airbender is super popular. I mean, there's been a live action Netflix series. There's been a successful spin-off in Korra, with another spin-off on the way. This just did not feel like a desperate plea for the franchise to remain relevant. This wasn't, oh look, this is that character you love in Aang. And look, it's hard for a movie like this that is a continuation of a beloved series to please everyone. I do think most fans of the original series will be pleased by this movie. Maybe it won't be their favorite thing ever created in this universe, but I think it is a worthy continuation of one of my favorite shows of all time. So those are the four elements that I think are special about this movie: the aging up of the characters, the scope of the action, the story worth telling, and the right amount of nostalgia. Avatar Aang The Last Airbender is one of those movies where the talk around it has been about absolutely nothing to do with the movie itself. There have been two major scandals surrounding this film. The first one being the fact that Paramount decided to put it on its streaming service when in fact it was originally headed to theaters, presumably because they feared what it would do at the box office. And I get both sides of it. There are devoted fans of Avatar The Last Airbender, and it's talked about online a lot lot. People have watched Korra and the live-action series. The 2010 live-action movie, for as bad as it was, made $315 million. But by no means would this movie have been a sure thing. $100 million for Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender would have been a victory for a hand-drawn animated film these days. The even bigger scandal is the fact that this movie was widely leaked online, and all of the talk became about how unfair it is for the creators to watch the leak. And I, of course, agree with that sentiment, but my fear is that this is going to be the thing most people remember about Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender, and this is a movie that, in my humble opinion, deserves better than that. This should be a movie where we talk about the development of the character of Aang, that we get excited about what's to come in this world. But instead, we're talking about how they didn't put the movie in theaters, and we don't know what that means for the future of stories that include Avatar Aang and Prince Zuko and Katara and Toph and Sokka. We don't know what's going to happen next for these characters moving forward. And the leak itself, who really cares about that at this point? I didn't watch the movie when it was leaked. I watched it on Paramount Plus because I think that is the right thing to do. You watch a movie when the filmmakers say the movie has been released, whether that's in theaters or on a streaming service. They decide when their movies come out. We won't know for a while, like, if this movie is going to get new fans for this franchise. I mean, that's the concern with something like this. Like, is it only pleasing somebody who is already a mega fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender? Like, are new people going to discover this show? I mean, I think people still discover the show, but will the movie get people interested in the show and the future of Aang and Katara and Sokka and Zuko and Toph? Right? That's a big ask for a movie like this, because you're listening to somebody who has watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, who has watched Korra, and was a kid when these things were becoming popular in the first place. What is Avatar: The Last Airbender going to mean to people in 20 years from now? This is a crazy thing for me to say on a podcast, but quality-wise, Avatar: The Last Airbender to me is just as good, and I love it just as much as I love things like Indiana Jones, Star Wars, the Lord of the Ring movies. But deep down, I know that those movies are culturally bigger than Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm just wondering if this franchise can ever get to a place where it can get bigger, or is it always going to remain a thing that the people who love it absolutely love it, and the people who don't will just never give it a chance? And I say that because I believe if you watched that show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, all 3 books, you will end up falling in love with the world, falling in love with the characters. It's impossible not to. It's that good of a show. I think the 2 best animated series of my lifetime is Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't even think there's a third show worth talking about. I loved Pokemon, I loved Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, but those do not rival Batman the Animated Series and Avatar: The Last Airbender. If the goal of this movie, Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender, was to please a die-hard fan like myself, then I would say mission accomplished. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. I'm Cameron McKinney, and there'll be a new episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about the film Masters of the Universe, starring Nicholas Galitzine, Camilla Mendes, and Idris Elba. So tune into that, and please rate, review, and subscribe.